Evaluator Services and Technology Incorporated, and that is the company that has been in charge of setting property values here in Indiana County. The assessment of the properties then go through the process of taxation, and that really isn't where his company is concerned. Tim, good morning to you. You're concerned as a company with actually assessing the properties and setting a value on them, and then the process moves forward from there.
Good morning. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Correct. What we do is assist the county in the reassessment process, gather the data, study the sales in the marketplace to determine what people are paying for properties, and then assist with the logistics of completing the reassessment process, informal reviews, formal appeals, and then ultimately equalize millage rates.
Certainly, you're aware, and everybody is aware, that it's been quite a rocky road over the last couple of months as people have gotten those assessments. There have been some very vocal protests and even some court filings in the case. Let's start by asking you: Is that unusual, or is that something that you know that is going to happen when you do these for whatever county or municipality?
In Pennsylvania, it's not unusual at all. After 47 years without a reassessment, any county that reassesses after that kind of duration sees this exact same circumstance. Protesters in front of the courthouse, people upset, because it's sticker shock. You have to do it all at once. There's no legal proceeding to phase it in. It's not an option. So it's basically a process that has to be repaired and fixed all at one time, and that creates a lot of difficulties for folks. And there's going to be more challenges in making sure everything is ultimately right in the end, again, because it hasn't been done for so long.
I was not here last week. I was on vacation and out of the area, so I did not hear the appearance by some folks on the program last week. You say there were some misconceptions that came up through what you heard last week on the program. Maybe you'd like to take a shot at clearing some of those up.
Well, I understand why people get upset. And as that builds, there gets to be a little bit of some conspiracy theory stuff going on, some situations where incorrect information will snowball and then be repeated, and it becomes as though it's fact. We've tried to provide accurate, factual information through the taxpayer guide, through interviews that I've done with both radio and print media, to give factual information out. Clean and Green has been misrepresented as a federal land grab, and it's not even a federal program. It's a state law that allows farmers and foresters to pay taxes on ag use value instead of market value. And in Pennsylvania, that's the only legal way to tax farmland and forest land at what farm values are instead of what retail sales of real estate are doing.
All right, so that was a part of that discussion last week. Anything else that you would have contention with from that interview that happened last week?
I didn't review my notes from it at this point, to be honest, and I guess the focus, if there's specific questions that people have had, I've never dodged those, and always try to provide good information for that.
All right, well, let's get into the property evaluations themselves. And there are many questions, and there are bound to be errors that come up. What are some of the errors that you have seen through this process that have been easy to correct? What are some of the ones that are causing more thorny problems?
Well, the challenge in Indiana County is obviously the time since the last reassessment, but there are also areas of the county that have fewer sales of real estate. So when we develop values, the mass appraisal process presumes that that the market establishes itself, that you can analyze that. Most of the county, there's sufficient information to determine what buyers and sellers are paying, but there's portions of the county where that's more difficult. And we had to look at a broader area, sort of zoom out, if you will. When you do that, you lose focus on some of the pockets. So we've gone back out, not physically, but we've looked back at the data again. We've gathered new information, and we have been revising some of the values, particularly in the northern end of the county, based upon new information that's now available to us. That's at the valuation side of it. At the personal level, for property owners, again, mass appraisal is a batch or group process, and it assumes certain things about the property. It assumes that it is a normal, typical property. Gentleman came in for a formal appeal the other day. His roof was leaking. There was water damage inside. There was literally black mold growing on the walls. None of that visible from the exterior inspection. Clearly, the initial value that he was mailed July 1st was not the value that that property would bring on the marketplace. And it was corrected massively during the formal appeal because he brought in pictures of the information. He didn't even have any sales evidence. He just brought in physical description that the appeal board was able to adjust what is a average value or a typical value for the area to his specific circumstances. And that's normal procedures for countywide reassessment.
Let's talk about some of the things that when people go on the website and see their property evaluation, they can look at it in detail and they so notice this or they notice that. The letter grade. Talk about that letter grade, how it is arrived at, and how that impacts the evaluation of the property itself.
Well, the letter grade on the website is actually a simplified version of a even more detailed quality grade that we use within our measurements. Quality grade is a measure of quality of materials, quality of workmanship, architectural design of the property. So a house that's a shoebox, simple design is going to have a lower grade, and a house that's got elaborate roof lines and pillars and more architecturally aesthetics is going to have a higher letter grade. It's a way that we can classify or group properties that have maybe the same square footage in the same area to have slightly different values. And it's a judgment that the appraisers make, not that the data collectors do. It's something that the licensed appraisers make that judgment.
Okay. So that is obviously something that people are concerned about. They might say, well, that I looked at similar properties. I looked at the picture of my neighbor's property, which I consider to be similar to mine, and I have a higher grade, and automatically the assumption is therefore I'm going to pay a higher tax than that person.
Well, and if it's in the same neighborhood and all things being equal, that might be true, but there's so many variables that affect the value of a property, and it's always neighborhood driven. So a B may have a certain effect. A B grade house in a neighborhood of all A grade houses is a bad thing because it's below the standard for what that development might have. To help people understand this information, these codes and things, which are on the website, we've actually just posted this morning to the county website a new document that we've created that lists all the choices and descriptions of what they mean. Not for folks to challenge, the specifics so much as understand what the appraisers have determined are this. And grade is one of the things that's described on that new document. It's on the countyofIndiana.org/reassessment webpage.
So they can go there and they can learn more about that entire process.
It's about an 80-page document, all sorts of information that's there. And we also posted the millage rates on the site, the estimated millage rates that were used to calculate the impacts on the bottom, because a lot of owners are saying, well, I had my informal or my formal, and they want to know what the tax ramification would be. That was an easy calculation to do before. We're making it even easier by just putting out there the total millages that we use for those original impacts.
Some of the complaints that we heard have had to do with assumptions made by the debt collectors. I'll just use mine as an example. A barn on my property went up in 1978. When I look on the website, it says it was built in 2000, 1978, 2000. Somebody had to make that assumption. The road up in front of the house is a dirt road, but it's paved. And people are finding those as they take a look at their evaluations.
Sure, and both of those things, actually in the case of outbuildings, the age doesn't even matter. It's really the condition of the building and the utility of it that drives value. But we have to list an age, and so that is an assumption or a guess as to what the age is going to be. The condition is more easily, identified from the photographs that we've taken of the properties. All the outbuildings have really low contributory values. They don't add a lot to the sales price of the property. And we've had some folks want to argue everything from slabs to lean-tos, and we're talking about $300-400, values out of $100,000, $150,000 homes. Regarding the second example that you gave, with the paving, we have two primary classifications: paved and not paved, the dirt and gravel category. There's been a lot of discussion about tar and chip. Well, tar and chip is really a type of paving. It just means that, that we don't measure the degree or style of paving that was used. And again, that may have some value, impact on value, but it's maybe $1,000 or $2,000 out of the total picture of the value of the property. And if it's wrong, it's easy to correct at an informal review or at a formal review.
We have just a few moments left with Tim Barr from Evaluator Services, who's been explaining the evaluation process. Since I only have a couple of moments left, I want to let you take the rest of this time for this next minute and a half, 2 minutes. If you have something that you think that folks need to know that we haven't covered this morning, go ahead and take a shot.
Oh, thank you. The main thing that I want folks to understand is this was needed because of the huge disparity in the old values. Similar properties not being assessed. We know from state statistics the average variance was over 40%. Unfortunately, that means the taxes on average, when they went up 40% or more. When they went down 40% or more, because that's how bad the old values are, just because they're so old. This process was going to be difficult no matter how we do it. The information that's gathered from that field sweep is good, but it's not perfect. But that's resolvable because there is an established procedure that we're going through. Many properties owners have taken advantage of the informal reviews, and that's been very effective. We'll be mailing out letters confirming those values right after Labor Day. We'll also be sending out revised notices for the changes that have occurred for that reviews that we've done. Plus, we've had over 500 property owners visit the assessment office to correct and change acreage and parcel boundary issues and manage their property, maybe combine two adjoining properties together. This has woken up the citizens of Indiana County. In the end, we will have a fairer, more equitable tax base for them to base taxes on in the future, which is the goal that was originally set forth. It's what the Constitution of Pennsylvania requires, but has no penalty if counties fail to implement that. The final comment I would make is, if we can redirect all of this frustration that we all share into legislative tax reform and assist our local legislators in convincing the other